Is there anything you want for your kids that's different?
Oh yeah, I want them to have the fullness of life and family.
What if I told you the royal palace has just launched an investigation so explosive, so unprecedented, that it could rip apart everything Harry and Meghan have built over the past 5 years? Not rumours, not whispers, something official, calculated, and deeply unsettling is unfolding right now. What if I told you this investigation reaches into the most guarded, most sensitive part of their private lives, official records connected to their children, Archie and Lilibet? And what if I told you Meghan is reportedly deeply shaken by what this process could uncover, because the questions being asked go far beyond routine paperwork or surface-level protocol issues? These questions aren't casual, and they're not harmless. Palace insiders say the focus is on verification, documentation, and compliance with long-standing royal standards. The kind that determine legitimacy within the monarchy's rigid framework. That alone is enough to make nerves spike on both sides of the Atlantic. This is not tabloid noise, this is not internet chatter. According to multiple sources, this is a constitutional issue being examined behind palace walls and echoed quietly inside Meghan's Montecito home. Before we go any further, hit that subscribe button, turn on notifications, and drop a comment, because what you're about to hear cuts deep and demands attention. So here's the real question. Does the palace have the right to review official birth records tied to the line of succession, or is this crossing a line that should never be touched? I need to know what you think, because this moment isn't just about documents or royal rules, it's about legitimacy, bloodline clarity, and ensuring the system isn't left vulnerable to doubt. And Meghan, by all accounts, she never saw this coming. This is the investigation nobody expected. Something unusual is happening behind the gates of Buckingham Palace. Not gossip, not media spin, but something quiet, serious, and methodical. According to palace insiders, senior advisors have initiated what they officially call an internal verification review connected to Prince Archie and Princess Lilibet. Let me say that again, a verification review. That's palace language, and it carries serious weight. It means confirming that all documentation, timelines, and procedures meet royal standards that have governed the monarchy for centuries. Moves like this are almost unthinkable because the crown fears uncertainty more than scandal. Titles can be adjusted, duties can be stripped, but questions about bloodline, about who is and who is not legitimately placed within the line of succession, those shake the institution to its core. The monarchy survives on certainty, and even a hint of confusion makes the entire structure tremble. As one royal commentator bluntly put it, Meghan and Harry are not entitled to privacy in this matter. The public has a right to confidence that the line of succession is beyond question. Harsh, absolutely. But that statement reflects how monarchy logic works when constitutional integrity is on the line. Every royal child's birth must be documented, witnessed, verified, and permanently recorded. These protocols have existed for hundreds of years, and they leave no room for gaps, contradictions, or unanswered questions. Yet with Archie and Lilibet, palace sources say questions have quietly piled up over time. So why now? Why would the palace suddenly revisit a topic they've avoided touching for years? Because a series of small inconsistencies has finally reached a point where they could no longer be brushed aside. Not dramatic mistakes, subtle ones, missing details, irregular paperwork, procedures that didn't fully align with royal standards. On their own, each detail looks harmless, but when placed side by side, they form a pattern. And patterns make palace officials nervous. Once that pattern reached senior advisors at Buckingham Palace, they quietly began digging, starting with the earliest official document connected to the Sussex children, Archie's birth certificate. For most families, a birth certificate is basic paperwork, filed, stamped, and forgotten in a drawer. But for the royal family, it's a constitutional record. It's the first legal proof of identity for someone positioned within the line of succession, and every detail must remain clear, consistent, and permanent. But Archie's birth certificate didn't remain unchanged. Months after his birth on May 6, 2019, something quietly shifted. The document was amended. Meghan's full legal name, Rachel Meghan Markle, was removed from the record. Think about that for a moment. Someone went back into official government files and altered a royal birth document after it had already been filed and made public. In its place appeared only the styling, Her Royal Highness the Duchess of Sussex. No first name, no surname, just the title. In royal bureaucracy, that kind of change is extremely rare. Someone has to request it, someone has to approve it, someone has to log it formally, and there must be a clear justification strong enough to alter a future royal's foundational document. But when palace reviewers looked back at that moment, the explanations didn't line up. Meghan reportedly said the palace requested the change to match protocol. Palace insiders said the push came from Meghan's side. And most troubling of all, there was no clear paper trail explaining why the change was necessary at all. Ask yourself this: how often do parents return months later to remove their own legal name from their child's birth record? It's not illegal, but it is unusual, especially in a system obsessed with record precision. When officials cross-referenced the certificate with external birth indexing systems, additional inconsistencies appeared. Some information aligned perfectly, other details didn't quite match. Nothing criminal, but enough to raise eyebrows inside an institution that treats uncertainty like poison. If the document was altered once, palace officials asked, why was it altered at all? And what else in Archie's early timeline didn't fully align with royal standards? Those questions pushed the review even deeper, straight into the day Archie was born. Once palace staff began retracing the timeline, a second wave of irregularities emerged. Not scandals, not explosive revelations, but small details that didn't fit the usual royal pattern. The monarchy normally handles royal births with military precision. For decades, every royal baby has followed the same sequence: verified birth, official medical statement, a palace bulletin displayed on an easel outside Buckingham Palace, followed by a controlled photo opportunity, a tradition that goes all the way back to 1837. This process isn't optional. It's constitutional protocol, plain and simple. When Prince George, Princess Charlotte and Prince Louis were born, every step was executed with clockwork precision. The palace easels listed the doctors' names, verified signatures, exact birth times, birth weights, and direct references to the royal household. No confusion, no gaps, no drama. But when Archie was born, everything looked different, and not in a small way. Instead of following the established sequence, Meghan and Harry chose to keep the birth private for more than 8 hours. No immediate confirmation, no official statement, no easel announcement, nothing. Even more confusing, the press release that eventually went out suggested Meghan had just gone into labour, after Archie had reportedly already been born. Let that sink in for a second. The public was told one thing while reality appeared to show something else entirely. Why do that? Why release information that didn't line up with the actual timeline? The result was predictable. Confusion, frustration, and a serious hit to credibility. As one royal commentator said, they played games with the process, and it cost them public trust. People weren't just confused, they felt misled. When Archie was finally presented to the world, there was no hospital steps moment, no medical witnesses, no palace officials standing by, just a brief, carefully staged appearance. Days later, images showed Meghan in a white dress holding a very still baby while Harry stood beside her. No doctors, no signatures, no verified confirmation. One observer remarked that the moment felt rehearsed rather than organic. Not proof of wrongdoing, but different enough to raise eyebrows inside an institution that values ritual and transparency above all else. Then came the location confusion. Initial reports pointed to the Portland Hospital, the private facility Meghan was said to have chosen. Later statements hinted at a home birth. Behind the scenes, whispers circulated about alternative locations entirely. Palace staff reportedly struggled to align the timeline with standard royal procedures. Royal births usually involve midwives, physicians, and senior officials who witness and sign off on every stage. Everything is documented because it must be. But when palace investigators reviewed Archie's timeline, they noted gaps, missing witnesses, delayed paperwork, unclear medical confirmations, and uncertainty around which professionals were present. Not enough to accuse anyone of wrongdoing, but enough to question whether royal standards were fully met. And this is the key point. Royal protocol exists for a reason. It's not about control or being old school. It's about creating an unbreakable chain of verification so no one can ever question whether a royal child legitimately belongs in the line of succession. With Archie, that chain appears strained. and that's why scrutiny followed, which brings us to the most controversial subject of all, the pregnancy that divided public opinion. Now this is where things get sensitive. For years, whispers have circulated online, rarely discussed openly in mainstream media, about whether a surrogate may have been involved. This question has existed since Archie's birth, and with an official verification review underway, investigators are reportedly examining it carefully. Let me be clear, this is not an accusation. This is about what palace reviewers are obligated to examine when documentation appears incomplete or inconsistent. Their focus isn't belief, it's evidence. Observers noted unusual visual inconsistencies during Meghan's pregnancy appearances. At times, the baby bump appeared larger, then noticeably smaller, not following a predictable progression. In some clips, the bump seemed to shift unexpectedly, raising questions online. One moment went viral, often referred to as the moon bump incident, where Meghan's belly appeared to fold as she sat down during a public engagement. Supporters argue it was lighting, fabric, posture, or camera angles, and those explanations are valid possibilities. But palace investigators don't operate on opinions. They gather data. Every public appearance, every photograph, every video is reportedly being reviewed and compared with medical norms for pregnancy progression at various stages. As one insider put it, the issue isn't conspiracy theories, it's documentation. Royal medical standards require verification, and right now, investigators are assessing whether those records exist and whether they align. Now let's talk about Lilibet. Because if Archie's timeline raised concerns, Lilibet's situation took things to another level entirely. Lilibet's birth was announced exclusively through Meghan and Harry's team in California. No British medical professionals, no royal medical staff, no palace easel, no confirming statement from Buckingham Palace. Instead, the public received a polished press release and a few carefully curated images. For a celebrity baby, that's normal. For a child connected to the royal bloodline and line of succession, it's a historic break from protocol. Royal births are typically verified by Crown-approved medical professionals. Records are filed immediately, locations are documented, witnesses are named. With Lilibet, those traditional pillars were missing from public view. As investigators reconstructed the timeline, contradictions began stacking up. Meghan's pregnancy appearances during the pandemic, mostly via Zoom calls and limited photos, offered no consistent visual progression. Some images suggested an advanced pregnancy, others showed barely any bump at all. One royal watcher noted that the lack of visibility made it impossible to track the pregnancy meaningfully, and that absence itself raised questions. What truly caught the palace's attention was the wording of the birth announcement. Legal analysts observed that the statement never explicitly said Meghan personally gave birth. Instead, it used carefully chosen language. One analyst explained this as plausible deniability, wording that avoids making a direct claim while still implying an outcome. That kind of legal phrasing doesn't happen by accident. Then, there's the doctor issue. The obstetrician reportedly connected to Lilibet's birth allegedly closed her practice just weeks later. No explanation, no public statement, no forwarding information. On its own, that means nothing. But paired with missing royal documentation, it raised eyebrows. Palace investigators reportedly noted that key confirming details were absent from official statements. One insider claimed certain lines were deliberately excluded from public releases to avoid legal complications. Again, not proof, but part of a broader pattern under review. And while each detail alone might seem harmless, together they form a picture the palace cannot ignore. But the biggest red flag didn't come from the birth itself, it came afterward. Lilibet's christening, or the lack of verifiable confirmation, triggered serious concern. A royal christening isn't just a family ceremony. Inside the monarchy, it's a constitutional act. It formally links a child to the Church of England, the institution inseparable from the crown itself. And that connection carries legal and symbolic weight that goes far beyond candles and photos. It creates the very first official spiritual and historical record of a child's identity within the monarchy. Royal christenings are not casual events. They are meant to be witnessed, certified, and formally logged. Even the most private ceremonies leave documentation behind. There is always a form, a registry entry, or written confirmation from a bishop or the Archbishop of Canterbury's office. That's why Meghan's public announcement about Lilibet's christening in California immediately raised eyebrows inside royal circles. If the ceremony had taken place under proper Church of England authority, there would be a traceable record somewhere within official church registries. But when palace advisors quietly checked those records, they reportedly found nothing matching Lilibet's name. No entry, no signature, no acknowledgement from the Archbishop's office, not even a private confirmation that the ceremony had occurred under official Church of England protocol for any child. That alone would be unusual, but for a child styled as a princess and placed within the line of succession, it triggered what insiders describe as a constitutional alarm. Without that verified record, Lilibet's formal royal connection isn't just unclear, it's incomplete in the eyes of the institution. Think about what that actually means. If there is no officially recognised christening under Church of England authority, then by the monarchy's own constitutional standards, Lilibet has not been formally integrated into the royal system. She is a child living in California with royal titles attached to her name, but without the institutional foundation traditionally required to support those titles. And according to palace sources, that missing piece was the final push that moved Buckingham Palace into the next phase, assembling a comprehensive internal case file with serious legal and constitutional implications. Before any decisions could even be considered, advisors had to revisit the foundational rules that define who is and is not officially recognised as part of the royal family. That's when attention turned to the 1917 Letters Patent, a historic document issued by King George V during World War I. On the surface, it's a dry legal text outlining which descendants of the monarch qualify for royal titles. But buried within that language is a far more powerful constitutional principle. Royal status is not symbolic alone. It must be legally verifiable. To be formally recognised under the Crown, a child must meet specific criteria. First, a documented lineage that can be fully verified through official records. Second, a birth that follows established royal medical procedures with proper witnesses and documentation. Third, religious ceremonies conducted under Church of England authority with traceable registry confirmation. These are not optional traditions. They are constitutional safeguards, rules designed to prevent confusion, prevent disputed claims, and protect the integrity of the line of succession. Most of the time, these steps are routine and seamless. Royal births typically happen in the UK under approved medical supervision, multiple witnesses, immediate documentation, official filing without delay. But with Archie and Lilibet, too many events happened outside that verified system. Foreign births without royal medical oversight. No publicly verified witness confirmations from palace-approved officials. Contradictory timelines. Missing or amended documents. Religious ceremonies without traceable records. As one constitutional expert explained, the monarchy can be flexible on many things. Duties, roles, even titles, but it cannot be flexible on verification of lineage. And that brings us to the question now dominating palace discussions. Do Archie and Lilibet meet the constitutional requirements to hold their titles and remain in the line of succession? And if the answer is no, or even uncertain, what happens next? Once the christening issue surfaced, Buckingham Palace shifted gears completely. This was no longer passive observation. It became a structured, methodical, and deeply confidential review. Not a public investigation, not a media event, but a quiet internal case file, the kind used only when something fundamentally clashes with centuries of royal precedent. Senior advisors, royal archivists, constitutional lawyers, and Church of England liaisons were discreetly brought into the process. Their mission wasn't to accuse anyone, it wasn't emotional, it wasn't personal, it was clinical and procedural. Reconstruct every step of Archie and Lilibet's arrivals, births, announcements, documentation, and compare them line by line with established royal standards. Insiders describe a private palace office where a full timeline wall was created, birth dates, press statements, medical confirmations, or the absence of them, religious ceremonies, public appearances. Every detail available to the Crown was catalogued and cross-referenced. As the timeline filled in, inconsistencies became harder to ignore. missing or incomplete witness statements that would normally be standard, hospital confirmations that should have been automatic but were delayed or absent, confusion over which medical professionals were present, paperwork filed far later than protocol allows, conflicting accounts between Meghan's team, Harry's public comments, and palace records, religious ceremonies without verifiable Church of England documentation, births occurring outside royal medical supervision, signatures and records that didn't align with standard procedures. Even photographic and video evidence was reviewed, not as proof of wrongdoing, but as part of a broader effort to assess pregnancy timelines against medical norms. Individually, none of these elements was definitive, but together they formed a pattern the Crown could not ignore. Because for the monarchy, uncertainty around lineage is more dangerous than scandal, more threatening than controversy, more destabilizing than negative press. Constitutional doubt weakens legitimacy, and legitimacy is the monarchy's entire foundation. As the internal case file grew thicker by the day, one unavoidable question emerged. What does this constitutional review actually mean for Meghan, Harry, and their children? And inside Montecito, sources say the atmosphere is nothing like the calm, curated image presented on social media. Meghan and Harry understand exactly what a formal royal review represents, and it's far worse than bad headlines or public criticism. For Meghan, the risk isn't just personal, it's existential to her brand. Her post-royal identity has been built around being a modern duchess and a mother of royal children, someone who stepped away from palace life but retained its prestige and mystique. That royal connection powered the Netflix deals, the best-selling books, the headline interviews, the lifestyle branding, and the carefully crafted image she's been projecting. Every product launch, every appearance, every statement trades on the perception of royal legitimacy. So what happens when official questions emerge about whether that legitimacy can be verified? What happens to a duchess when the palace itself is reviewing whether her family line meets constitutional standards? For Harry, the impact cuts even deeper. This isn't just about branding, it's about identity. He grew up believing his bloodline mattered, that his place in the monarchy was secure, that his children would naturally belong to something ancient and meaningful. Even after stepping away from royal duties, he believed his children would still be part of the crown's future. Now that belief is under strain. Sources say Harry has made repeated attempts to contact senior royals, frustrated, emotional, and searching for reassurance. But when matters shift into legal and constitutional territory, the palace does not negotiate emotionally, and the distance has only grown more pronounced and unresponsive. Emotion no longer matters, personal relationships no longer matter. The review is moving forward strictly according to institutional procedures, and nothing Meghan or Harry says can change that. No amount of pleading, explaining, or even public statements can stop this process once it's officially in motion. One palace insider revealed, Harry keeps asking, "How can they do this to my children?" But he's missing the bigger picture. The Crown isn't targeting anyone personally. They're safeguarding the constitutional integrity of the monarchy itself. That's what they've always done, and that's what they will continue to do, no matter the drama. Staffers who interact with the Montecito household describe the atmosphere as suffocating, tense, almost electric with fear and uncertainty. Meghan reportedly paces late into the night, phone constantly in hand, obsessively reviewing news coverage, social media reactions, and legal updates. She's reportedly in constant contact with PR specialists, lawyers, and private advisors, trying to anticipate every possible scenario. Meanwhile, Harry sits in another room, emotionally drained and overwhelmed, scrolling endlessly through articles, statements, and commentary, struggling to process what this means for his family's future, their legacy, and the perception of their royal bloodline. Sources say he repeatedly expresses frustration at the perceived injustice, yet the reality is far more complex. This isn't just an investigation or a review. This is an existential threat to everything they've built since stepping away from the royal family. The children's future hangs in the balance. This isn't about Meghan and Harry's reputations, their Netflix deals, or their brand empire. It's about Archie and Lilibet's entire identity and place in history. Every public appearance, every photograph, every statement that once reinforced their royal connection is now being scrutinized, dissected, and compared to centuries of established protocol. If the palace proceeds with any form of official reclassification or title removal due to insufficient documentation, these children could spend their entire lives under the shadow of doubt. Questions about legitimacy will follow them forever. Questions about whether they are truly royal. Questions about whether they even belong in the line of succession. Questions about why their own parents could not or would not provide proper documentation. One royal commentator put it bluntly, "People will be asking about this for the rest of Archie and Lily's lives. Surrogacy rumours, legal questions, constitutional standing, decades of speculation, all because of choices their parents made in secrecy." That's the tragedy. Meghan and Harry repeatedly claim their decisions were meant to protect the children's privacy and well-being. Yet by breaking centuries-old protocol, by deliberately keeping secrets, and by refusing to follow the same verification procedures every other royal has observed, they may have actually done the opposite. They've potentially created a lifetime of uncertainty, speculation, and legal grey areas for Archie and Lilibet. Imagine Archie at 25 trying to establish his identity. Will his royal title hold weight professionally, or will businesses, organisations, and institutions question its legitimacy? Imagine Lilibet at 30, writing a memoir or launching her own brand. Will half her story be spent defending her very existence and status instead of telling her real experiences? These are real-world consequences of constitutional uncertainty. Royal titles are not just decorative, they carry legal authority, constitutional weight, and historical significance. You can't just attach a title and assume the monarchy or the public will accept it without verification. Now, the palace is demanding that verification, and Meghan and Harry may not be able to provide it. Buckingham Palace has quietly, methodically assembled a comprehensive case file. We're at the final and most critical stage, the one Meghan and Harry fear the most, the stage where the monarchy decides exactly how to act on their findings. Here's what you need to understand. The Crown always, without exception, chooses the path that protects the institution first, not individuals, feelings, or public opinion. Constitutional experts now outline 3 possible outcomes, each of which could completely reshape the futures of Archie and Lilibet. Option 1. Titles frozen. The palace could quietly stop updating, recognising, or expanding the children's titles in any meaningful way. No dramatic announcements, no removals, just a slow, silent freeze. Archie and Lily would exist in name only on genealogical charts, but hold no active standing within the functioning monarchy. This approach preserves plausible deniability for the palace, while sidelining the children from constitutional recognition. Option 2. Quiet reclassification. The children could be internally reclassified as private citizens. Their names could quietly disappear from official pages, documents, and ceremonial recognition. They would still be Harry's children, with Sussex family connections, but no official constitutional standing, no public drama, no press releases, simply a silent administrative adjustment. This allows the palace to protect the institution while avoiding overtly questioning legitimacy. Option 3. Formal removal. The rarest, coldest, and most consequential outcome. Complete removal of titles and succession rights. If documentation fails to verify birth protocols or lineage standards, the Crown legally can, and arguably must, strip titles and remove the children from the line of succession. This is unprecedented in modern history, but fully within constitutional power and responsibility. No emotion, no vendetta, pure institutional obligation. A constitutional lawyer explained that if there is genuine uncertainty about a child's royal legitimacy, the Crown must act to prevent future disputes and safeguard centuries-old precedents. Which option is most likely? Palace insiders suggest a leaning toward option 1 or 2, protecting the institution quietly. But if Meghan and Harry aggressively resist, go public, or take legal action, the palace could be forced into option 3 to definitively settle the matter. That's the message. The Crown survives, individuals and feelings do not. Meghan and Harry built their post-royal empire on mystique and the perception of legitimate royal children, but the palace holds the legal authority. One formal decision, one constitutional opinion, one statement, and everything they've built could vanish. The palace has launched an unprecedented constitutional review into Archie and Lilibet's birth records and documentation. They are meticulously examining every irregularity, procedural gap, and deviation from royal standards. Meghan is reportedly terrified about the potential fallout for her carefully curated brand, and Harry is trapped between defending his family and confronting the reality that the monarchy's constitutional obligations transcend personal loyalty. They may spend the rest of their lives facing questions about legitimacy, titles, and historical standing, all because their parents chose secrecy over protocol. The Crown has 3 clear options: freeze the titles, quietly reclassify the children, or formally remove them from royal standing. And nobody, not Meghan, not Harry, not their lawyers, not PR specialists, can stop this process once it's in motion. The monarchy doesn't care about Netflix deals, Oprah interviews, or social media backlash. Decisions aren't based on celebrity or public sympathy. They're based on one thing only: protecting the constitutional integrity of the institution for the next 500 years. If that requires painful decisions about the Sussex children, so be it. The Crown always survives. Individual feelings do not. Now it's your turn. Do you think the palace is right to conduct this constitutional review? Should Meghan and Harry be legally required to provide full documentation for their children? Or is this an invasion of privacy? Do you believe the surrogate rumours? Do you think this is genuine constitutional concern or punishment? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. I read every single one, and I want to know where you stand on this explosive situation. And if you want to stay updated on every single development in this constitutional crisis as it unfolds, smash that subscribe button, hit the notification bell, and share this video so no one misses a beat. Trust me, this investigation is just beginning, and the palace's ultimate decision could change everything we thought we knew about the Sussex family. This isn't over. Not even close. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one.